Hello and welcome to another edition of the CBB Super Show. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuces 85. It's been a while, We last came to you right before the championship game. A lot has happened since the college basketball season ended. The transfer portal is going completely bananas. 1,100 plus players in it. There is a lot of, stuff going on with the NIL, with people getting paid, pay to play. It's not supposed to be that, but turning into that. There's a lot of new interesting rosters out there. People are getting, the way too early rankings going on. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And, I'm doing my thing on Twitter and socials and, grinding the news. And I just felt like there was enough now for me to hop on a show and talk. And, even if it meant just talking to myself and no one was listening, right? Like I just had some stuff to get off to my chest. And this will be a cool little show where, if you guys want to interact with me, cool. If you're watching, or it's going to be up on the channel for the foreseeable future, so you guys can leave comments and I'll check in on it and answer questions. And of course we can interact on Twitter as well. So really just wanted to use this time to talk about the landscape of college basketball, go into some of the more intriguing moves and just kind of chatter about that. I have a lot of stuff going on in the DFS, fantasy betting world. So obviously I'm doing the USFL thing right now. CFL is just done it, or it's getting ready to do its draft. So I'm going to be doing DFS coverage for that. WNBA starts Friday. I have a preview article that I'm writing for the different roster moves for that league. That's going to be dropping hopefully tomorrow evening, sometime around then, maybe even Thursday. And there'll be a slate for Friday, and I'll be doing content shows, with the other WNBA guys, like Josh and stuff. And we're going to be doing some collabs and lots of content coming out there for the niche sport. So have no fear. I'm going to be doing my thing there. I also am going to have some college football previews, midsummer, getting ready for that. There's still happenings going on with the transfer portal from college football. Jordan Addison, the Pittsburgh guy, the guy we've been playing for 2 years. 2 years ago, we kind of spotted him before everyone else. Very proud of that. And now it sounds like he may be going to USC. Money definitely talk there, as there might be some tampering. There's a lot going on. So just a ton, for me personally. And, I have been kind of quiet, just doing like one USFL article a week and kind of just catching up from the grind of the CBB season. But the news has been so crazy that I felt like I really needed to talk about it, jump on here, give everybody my thoughts, just get it off my chest, and then, move on. And also going to be doing by conference previews and really going more in depth, every team in the ACC, what moves they have, who they lost, who they gained, all this different stuff, rumors, SEC, Pac-12, all that good stuff. I do want to start with talking about some, rumors, transfers, the moves, and I want to kind of talk about NIL a little bit, just an hour or so, just kind of talking. I want to talk about first the Creighton Blue Jays, who their fans, man, they are just ripping me a new one on Twitter. And I thought Texas Tech fans and Indiana fans, they definitely have the reputation for being a little more, unreasonable on socials. But Creighton fans, man, they are just, getting a little bit of shine and some hype, and they're acting like they are, the hottest thing since sliced bread. Creighton team is very good on paper. They look great. There's a lot of hype there. A lot of way too early rankings are putting them up to, top 5 status. And that was before Baylor Sherman committed today. The South Dakota State scoring dynamo that was putting on a show in the tournament against the Friars before defense kind of locked him up. And they were still ranked as a top 10 team pre-Baylor committed. And to me, I thought that was a little bit too gung-ho. I didn't share that. There's one other writer / CBB guy who also doesn't feel that way. It's a kind of group thinky, but most other people are, Creighton's bringing back, these bomb freshmen, and that they're going to be, just they're going to win the Big East going away. And before Baylor got there, here's what they have. So obviously they're losing Ryan Hawkins, the Mr. 14 points per game. At times they had to lean heavily on him. Alex O'Connell, who, we joke about him not being a very big DFS threat, but he did average 12 points a game. That's two big scores. That's 25, 26 points a game that they're just losing. And then Keyshawn Faisal, little use backup center. So who are they returning first? Ryan Calcbrenner, who suffered a very nasty injury at the end of the season, as we know, so he will have to work back from that. Calcbrenner is an absolute beast. Ryan Nembhard, Andrew's brother, he crushed it last year pre-injury, suffered an injury that took away the rest of his season. So you have Calcbrenner and Nembhard, two pieces that they're going to be relying upon very heavily that, we don't know just how they're going to come back from this injury, right? So they could come back and just be fine and play, up to the optimal level they were pre-injury, or they could be a little slow going, or they could maybe not be the same. You never really know with these injuries. With the way medical stuff is now and the treatments and all of that, typically players, they have the stuff accessible to them now that even 10 years ago players didn't have. So I suspect Ryan Calcbrenner and Ryan Nembhard are going to be able to bounce back and be contributors. But it is scary when two of the, 4 guys that you're getting back that you're really going to be relying on are coming back from serious injuries. Arthur Columba, who averaged about 10.4 points per game last season, he really the last month or so of the season came on and became a really strong player. He was, looked like a guy that's going to be a Big East, conference first team, all conference type of player. Good trajectory for him. And then Trey Alexander, of course, who started playing more, was forced to play more after the Ryan Nembhard injury. And he really, went through some growing pains, but towards the end of the season, he looked good. So Calcbrenner, Nembhard, Columba, and Alexander, that quartet has people feeling really good. Now, is that a top 25 team, those 4 pre-Baylor? Absolutely. Maybe even top 15. But to put them in like number 2, number 3 slot prior to Baylor Sherman today was just, to me, borderline ludicrous. Who else do they have? So bench-wise, you're looking at Ratty, who was having to play big minutes. The big argument with Creighton Twitter for me was I was saying, they were going to have to play Ratty 20-something minutes. They all called me stupid, whatever, that's fine. You want to call me dumb about that take? That's fine. They brought in Francisco Farabello, a TCU, transfer who averaged about 5 points per game. He was just there as a guy that they could get to swoop in, plays decent defense, and would make it so they wouldn't have to play Ratty 20 plus minutes a game. So yes, right now they don't have to play Ratty 20 minutes a game with that transfer, but he was still going to have to play because you're looking at their bench as this: Sharif Mitchell, who's coming off of an injury of his own, missed the whole season. Ratty, a red shirt player in Mason Miller, who a lot of guys are excited about. TCU transfer Francisco Farabello, a 4-star Frosh Jason Green, and a 3-star Frosh Ben Schlossberg. They are also bringing in one other guy who's, let me pull up his name here. He is, I believe, an overseas foreign recruit, which they're pretty known for doing at Creighton. They've brought in some really good bigs in the past. Frederick King from the NBA Academy. So Latin America. Okay. So Frederick King from the NBA Academy on the 29th of April. So they brought him in as well as a center, not ranked, of course, but just another body that they'll be able to do some stuff with. And then, of course, today, Baylor Sherman, who is just a lightning in a bottle type of play. A lot of funny story about him. When he announced that he wasn't going to go to Kentucky, because he had his pick of the litter, right? He could have gone to Duke. He could have gone to Kentucky. He could have gone to Arkansas. Could have gone anywhere he wanted. Kentucky was very offended, their fans on socials, when his team said he didn't want to play the Kellen Grady role. Got myself into trouble with Kentucky fans on Twitter. They were calling me an idiot for, saying that the Kellen Grady role wasn't a star role. The guy, his claim was Kellen Grady pre-injury towards the end of the season was a star. Why doesn't Baylor want to come to Kentucky and be a star? Well, number one, Kellen Grady wasn't in a star role. He was in a role player type of role where he had to stand in a corner and shoot threes. Not a bad role. If you want to do that, that's fine. Baylor clearly wants to be a high usage guy. He wants to I mean, hell, he's in the draft right now. If he gets, there's a chance that if he kills NBA camps and he gets a promise to get drafted, he may not even play. And then Creighton's back to square one. But with Kellen Grady, this would have been the situation for Baylor that he didn't want to be in. So Grady, while he was at Davidson, shot rate, career shot rate over 27%, career usage rate over 24%. He goes to Kentucky, and while, yes, he played nearly the most minutes in the SEC, so the minutes were there, the usage and the shot rate weren't. 17.4% shot rate. So shot rate goes down 11% from Davidson to Kentucky. His usage rate goes down 12%, down to 13%. Shot the best, his career percentage, 42%, the best he's ever shot. It was 36% career at Davidson prior to that in his previous 2 seasons. So shots, were falling for him, but there wasn't the volume. He wasn't the star. You had Ty Washington, Severe Wheeler, obviously Oscar Tshiebwe. Don't sit here and tell me that Kellen Grady role for Baylor is a star role. Like, it's a high minute role, but he can play high minutes anywhere. He's going to go to Creighton and maybe he's going to play 34.5 minutes where, yeah, he could have gone to Kentucky maybe and played 38 minutes is what they were saying. But I don't actually believe that. Kentucky has a huge class coming in with multiple, 5 stars, 4 stars, you name it. Oscar Tshiebwe is coming back. I believe Severe Wheeler's coming back. Frederick is coming off an injury, so he's going to play. Yes, some guys have left, but that Kentucky roster is full of high level elite talent. So the usage just wasn't there on this Creighton squad. He'll be able to slide into that Hawkins role and be a big factor. However, as I said, if he stays in the draft, Creighton is back to being a top 20 team, not a top 5 team. There's no way to change my mind. I'm going to be stubborn about this. I don't think a roster that looks like Ryan Calcbrenner, Ryan Nembhard, Arthur Columba, Trey Alexander, Sharif Mitchell, Ratty, Mason Miller, Ben Schlotzberg, Jason Green, and Francisco Farabello is a top 5 team. I think if you take off your Creighton colored glasses, you would agree with me as well. Add Baylor Shearman to the mix like we just did. Yeah, I could probably buy into that being a top 5 team. I do want to see how Calcbrenner and Nembhard, look coming off of their injury. I want to see if there's any other pieces in the portal that Creighton might be looking at. Otherwise, they got some young guys that can learn from Cal, and them and see if these freshmen, now they're going to be sophomores, can make that next step. So I wanted to start with Creighton because I took a lot of flack for what I said about them. Let's jump over to some ACC teams because obviously there is a lot to talk about, starting with North Carolina, the national runner-ups. They are going to be losing, of course, Brady Manek out of eligibility. If Manek had eligibility still, he would certainly be back. I have no doubt about that. Dawson Garcia, who is heading to Minnesota, and Anthony Harris, who just hasn't been able to get healthy. He's out. Armando Bacot has decided to come back. Caleb Love has decided to come back. RJ Davis, Leaky Black, Dave, and Puff Johnson have all decided to come back. They'll also have Justin McCoy, little used bench player, DeMarco Dunn, who has a lot of talent, Dontrez Styles. These are all guys who are going to, be able to hopefully take that next step and allow the Heels to have a little bit more of a bench. They're also bringing in the top 50 recruit in Seth Trimble, who I love. Very big fan of Seth Trimble. I think he's going to be much better than people expect. Jalen Washington, who's top 40, and Tyler Nickel, who's a top 100. So, as far as scholarships go, that's it. That's their roster. They don't have any more spots. They would like to still get someone in to fill that Manek role, but as it stands right now with everyone who's coming back, I don't believe they have a scholarship, even with Kerwin Walton transferring. I'll have to double check on that, but that did just come out. Kerwin Walton has decided to transfer. A very clutch 3-point shooter who in his freshman season, had playing time. There wasn't really a role for him on this current team. I do think he's going to be able to land in a spot that gets him pretty big minutes, and I think you'll see him, Kerwin Walton, be a pretty big play in DFS purposes, fantasy purposes next season, depending on that landing spot. So with Walton transferring, maybe that does open up a slot for them to be able to get that Manek replacement. I don't know that the Manic replacement is out there. There has been some that are talking about Matthew Mayer, who is in the draft right now, doesn't want to come back to college, but he has put himself in the transfer portal. You're also going to see that a lot. There are players who are entering the draft, right? And they're throwing themselves in the portal as well, because by the May 1st, which is past now, you had to get to the portal. That was the deadline. If you didn't, you weren't able to transfer. So this way, if they don't get the news that they want, they're going and getting this info from the NBA guys. It doesn't, jive with what they want. They can go back to college. They're in the portal. They don't have to be stuck on a roster they don't want to be. So I am surprised Mayer didn't decide to stay with Baylor because of what they've done, but he is in the portal. A lot of people think he's the Manic answer. He doesn't shoot as good as Brady Manic. So to me, I don't really like that fit, but to each his own. North Carolina is going to get a lot of hype like UCLA did after their tournament run through the Final Four. And we said at the beginning of the season, I harped on it a lot. UCLA is being overhyped. Don't buy into it. This is not going to be a team that is going to be dominant like people think. Now we're seeing people on the other end of it, because it was trendy to say UCLA was going to, go far. Now it's trendy to say North Carolina is this year's UCLA. And what's funny is I'm on the opposite side. I think this North Carolina team with so much experience, Baycott's been there for 4 years now. Love now coming up on his third season. Davis a couple of seasons. Black's been there since the Reagan administration. You got a second year of Puff Johnson, who I think is going to be really good, and then Seth Trimble, who I really think is going to end up being much better than people even realize. If you can get Dontrez Style and DeMarco Dunn, at least contributing 8 to 10 minutes a game, this is a North Carolina team that is very, very deserving of a top 5 or preseason, early season, whatever you want to call it, ranking. So I will be against the public there. I don't think they're another UCLA. I think they're the real deal. Who else? So I'm just going to quickly go conference to conference, and then I'm going to do a more specific show for each conference going through. So sticking with the ACC, NC State, man. Coach Keats, he is just not doing well. Manny Bates left. He's gone into the portal. In fact, Manny Bates will be deciding tomorrow where he wants to go between Butler, Iowa State, one other program there. Thomas Allen, Cam Hayes, Jericho Helms, Jalen Gibson, all out the door. Right now, Turquavian Smith and Darion Seabron are in the draft. It does sound like our guy, Turk Smith, is going to stay in the draft. My heart is broken. Turk Smith was our guy. We rode him as the posh play of the day so many times, but the kid's a killer scorer, and he has NBA written all over him. Now, it's going to take him several years to get up to speed in the NBA. He's still very raw, but I think at this point, if he's going to get a first-round grade, you just go. Seabron, I think if he were to – actually, he didn't hit the portal, so if Seabron comes back, he's stuck with the Wolfpack. So I think ultimately Smith and Seabron are going to stay in the draft. As far as guys who are returning, it's tough, man. Ernest Ross, Ebenezer Dwana, Brian Pass, Greg Gant, who was a Providence transfer, Casey Morcell. It's really looking bleak. They did bring in a couple of transfers early on. Jarkel Joyner, 14-point scorer at Ole Miss, and Jack Clark, a 12-point scorer at LaSalle. Things are looking bleak for the Wolfpack. They have some more moves to make. They definitely are not out of it. I don't think they're going to be necessarily as bad as they just were, but the talent level is definitely scary to the point where I'm feeling a little bit scared for them. Who else did they just get? They also got the kid from Utah too. Let me see here. Had so many names that I can't remember them all. Okay. Yeah, dude. Okay, Dusan Mahorcic. That's the name I was looking for. Blanking out. He's also committed to NC State. So the third transfer that they got there. He was an Illinois State guy, really a badass at Illinois State. At Utah, he had his moments, just looked okay, kind of bounced around. But I think at NC State, he'll do well. They needed a big desperately. So that's pretty big for them. Other ACC rosters that I like as is now, let's mention Miami. Obviously, they're losing Cameron McGusty, Charlie Moore, who is finally out of eligibility. I don't think they can invent another way to get him another year. The COVID years passed already. He's been year 7, although Jalen Coleman-Lansky's finding ways to play. Wardenberg, and I believe Rodney Miller is out the door. Isaiah Wong is in the draft, but expected to come back. Now with the NIL stuff, he tried to pull that excuse my language, that shit, where he was threatening to leave if he wasn't going to get paid more, as much as incoming transfer Nigel Pack from, Kansas State. He's getting paid $800,000 for or $400,000 to $800,000. And Isaiah Wong didn't like that one to get paid. They checked him back. He's going to get some other NIL deals. This is what I'm talking about. I wanted to get into NIL a little bit as well. As far as pay to play, that's not what it's supposed to be, right? You're not supposed to pay these kids to, come play for you. It's you come play and you're going to be able to sell your name, image, likeness. You're going to be able to get sponsorship deals. You're going to be able to sign jerseys, your shoes. You can sell items. You can make money. Not that the boosters are supposed to pay you all this money and a pay for play. So right now, that's the world we live in. That's going to change. I think there is going to be some reform. There is going to be some guidelines for that. Knowing the NCAA, who still has not punished hardly anyone from the FBI stuff from 2017, which is 5 years ago, we could be looking at, 6 years from now before they have any guidelines, legislation, or anyone's going to get in trouble for this. So as of right now, it's the Wild West. I know a lot of you hate the portal. You hate this NIL stuff. At the end of the day, my opinion on it, kids should get paid. They should get paid for their talent. They should be allowed to transfer if they want and better their situations. I'm going to get off track here like I always do as I'm still going through the ACC. Low majors and mid majors aren't going to suddenly just not have players play for them, and they're not just going to have to, go with NIA, D2, D3, JUCOs. Like, we're going to see high major players who are, 1, not getting playing time, 2, not getting opportunity, and 3, just they're buried on the depth chart, transferring down. That's going to continue to happen. We are going to see guys transfer down. Andre Kelly from Cal just transferred to the UCSB Gauchos like an hour ago before I got on the air, because his opportunity is going to be massive at that level. He's going to be able to be a Big West Player of the Year candidate. He's going to be able to improve his draft stock. He is going to be a big-time deal in college basketball. He decided to transfer down from Cal, which is a sinking ship program, which has been for years. And trust me, there's plenty of other opportunities for guys to transfer down. So they're still going to get people. I mean, Earl Timberlake, Miami transfer to Memphis transfer to now Bryant transfer. Yeah, Bryant, the newly crowned American East Bryant University has Earl Timberlake playing for them. He's a top 100 recruit from 2 years ago. So they're still going to be okay. Obviously, we're going to see amazing stud, low to mid-major guys go up. That's just the way it's going to be. But on the same token, guys who struggle at the high major level are going to come down. Now, I think that they should be allowed continue that free transfer the first time. If they want to transfer a second, a third, a fourth time, whatever, then sure. I believe we should have them sit out to kind of curtail that. If they get a waiver, cool. But that first transfer is on the house. Make it, find where you're going to go, pick a spot, and roll. I've had arguments on socials about this transfer business all day long. Pay the kids, let them go where they want to go, and let's move on with it. Anyways, Miami expected to return. Our boy Jordan Miller, total stud. I expect a big year from him. Bensley Joseph, kind of a little used guard, kind of a decent three-point shooter. I do like him. Anthony Walker, hopefully they'll play him. Harlan Beverly will be back from his red shirt. Ja'Kai Robinson back from his red shirt. Beverly 2 years ago was a very productive player. They're bringing in 3 4 stars. AJ Casey, Christian Watson, Faber are all 4 stars. 2 of them top 100 guys. They also have a borderline 4-star Danilo Jovanovicic. They're also bringing in Ark State's Norchad Omier, who was an 18.1 per point game scorer at Arkansas State. So they're solving the issue of in the paint. Remember how bad Miami was in the post? We could always target bigs against them. They've solved that issue on paper with Norchad. Can Norchad handle the rigors of the ACC and going up against 5-star talent, upper tier talent? Maybe not, but on paper he's definitely a guy who's going to be able to do some damage. We'll see if that can continue. Let's talk about Louisville. There's a lot going on, a lot of rumors. So who's left for Louisville? New coach Kenny Payne's coming in, bringing in some solid coaches, fighting with Memphis for DeJuan Wagner's kid to see who's going to get him for next year. They're making moves. They're clearing out the roster. Noah Locke's gone. Malik Williams is gone. Young KD. Rest in peace, my man. Didn't die, but he's out of college basketball now. So no young KD anymore. Dre Davis is gone, he's actually off to Seton Hall with his brother. Jared West is gone. He is playing there's a new pro league, which it's like Great Britain or something like that. He's off to play professionally. Matt Cross is gone. Samuel Williamson is gone. Both have transferred. Mason Faulkner, gone. Gabe Wisnitzer, little used reserve, gone. They will likely return our guy, L. Ellis, the scoring dynamo that we use. Sidney Curry has already said he'll be back. Jalen Withers, who I still really like and think has a chance to be really good. Roosevelt Wheeler and J.J. Traynor. Nothing great on paper. They're bringing in a top 50 recruit in Kamari Lands, but the first domino has fallen. They've brought in Brandon Huntley Hatfield, the transfer from Tennessee, a 5-star guy. He only, played, 18 to 22 minutes. Coach Rick Barnes didn't use him properly. He averaged 4 points per game. He said, you know what, F you, I'm out. So Hatfield will probably play the 5, and I'm thinking maybe Curry the 4. That's a pretty strong front court off top. Now, rumors are going. I'm always on the recruiting boards. I'm talking to different people. I'm looking at different things. Louisville has a lot of things in play here. They are strongly rumored to be getting Imani Bates. So that first domino with Hatfield fell. The next one is about to fall with Imani Bates, the Memphis transfer. He has been struggling. He just had to move on from Memphis. He reclassified. I think he was a little bit too young. I think things were a little bit too much for him. He's also looking at Arkansas, Eastern Michigan, which would be badass. A couple other programs, but it sounds like Louisville is definitely going to be the one that nabs him. So then you add him into the mix. Coach Payne's son, Zan Payne from Kentucky. He is the, walk-on transfer from there. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes for Kentucky. He was expected to leave, and that did indeed happen. So he's hitting the road. With his dad playing, Zan's dad being the coach of Louisville, it's widely expected that he's just going to walk on and go to Louisville. So I would expect Zan Payne and Imani Bates to be joining Louisville within the next couple of days, if not tomorrow/today, depending on when you're watching this. They're also, I'd say, a better than 60% chance that Louisville is going to land Iowa State guard transfer Tyrese Hunter. Now, the Cyclones were fans were very upset, hate the portal. Tyrese Hunter's leaving. This must stop. And then, Iowa State proceeds to land themselves some transfers, and they're in the mix. We'll get to them in a minute. But Tyrese Hunter and the do everything triple-double alert Isaiah Mosley from Missouri State, he's also rumored to be going to Louisville. So there's a potential in the next 48 hours for Louisville to land Imani Bates, Zan Payne, Tyrese Hunter, and Isaiah Mosley. Now, Arkansas is heavy on Isaiah Mosley too, but they're having Ricky Council, Wichita State transfer, in this weekend. From what I've read on their board, their recruiting board, it sounds as though they feel pretty comfortable and confident that they're going to land Council. If that's the case, Mosley, there's zero chance he can go there because they're already one transfer or one scholarship over. I don't know how they're going to do this gymnastics to even bring in Council, but if they do, they're 2 over, and Mosley, there's no chance of him coming. So Louisville has a chance to roll out a lineup of Tyrese Hunter, Sidney Curry, Brandon Huntley Hatfield, perhaps Imani Bates, and I guess Jalen Withers, and then off the bench you're looking at L. Ellis, Roosevelt Wheeler, J.J. Traynor, Lands. It's a totally different team from this year, and I think that we're going to be talking about them being a tournament team if they're able to land that entire group. So we'll see how that goes. That's one to definitely track. Duke is going to be Duke, right? They're losing Banchero, Wendell Moore, Trevor Keels is likely to stay in the draft. Mark Williams, AJ Griffin, Theo Johns out of eligibility. So it's really just Jeremy Roach coming back. Bates Jones is going to return, I believe. He's not going to play. We know that. Joey Baker, I think, is still around. And then Jalen Blakes, who could probably play for a fair amount of low majors. The class is insane. Derek Lively, Dariq Whitehead, Kyle Filipakowski, Mark Mitchell, Jaden Shute, Christian Reeves. Like, this is a sick class. Lively and Whitehead and Filipowski are going to be the ones talked about the most, but I do want to tell you that Mark Mitchell, out of watching the different games of him and being involved, he looks like the best player on the floor at all times. Mark Mitchell, the number 26 recruit, I think he's going to be the best option for DFS purposes. They've also brought in transfer Cale Catchings, 9.1 per game score from Harvard. They've also brought in Ryan Young, transfer from Northwestern, which surprised me because I thought Ryan Young was going to go somewhere to get more minutes, not less. So Duke has got to be talked about, of course. My boys at Clemson, they brought in Brevin Galloway from Boston College. PJ Hall's back. Definitely got to like them. Just a lot going on there. Let's jump to the SEC, though, because this is where things are going to get real scary. The SEC teams are going to look so different. And the nice thing for DFS purposes is, for me, I'm going to be doing, conference previews. I'm going to be doing shows. I'm going to be breaking down each team for you guys. With all these different rosters turned over like this, there's going to be a very steep learning curve for people who rely heavily on optimizers, projections, that kind of stuff, because, they're not going to know how new roles are going to look. They're not going to be able to dig in and dive into that stuff. They're going to want to just take last year's numbers and apply them, to their opto. Not going to work. So we're going to have a very big edge for the first month and a half of the season. Starting with Alabama in the SEC, I want to do a quick SEC rundown because this is the conference it's going to make us a lot of money. Jaden Shackelford, Keon Ellis, J.D. Davison, Jawan Gary, James Rojas, Keon Ambrose Hilton, Jashawn Holt, and Alex Tchugo are all out the door. Javon Quinterly will be back. Noah Gurley will be back. Charles Bediako, who I'm expecting a huge breakout from, will be back. Darius Miles, who I like. And then Namari Burnett off his red shirt. I believe it was a medical red shirt. They do have number 9 in the class, Brandon Miller. Number 19, Jaden Bradley. Number 49, Rylan Griffin. And number 53, Noah Clowney, who I love. I think he's great. Coming in as their class, they have Nick Pringle, a JUCO who is a very good scorer, and then Mark Sears, 20-point per game scorer from Ohio. Slide Sears into that, Jaden Shackelford role. They won't miss a beat. Alabama's also in on Michael Jones, the 3-point sniper from Davidson. Several teams are, including Stanford and Northwestern and a few others as well. I'm surprised more teams aren't in on him, but there's a chance Alabama brings in a 3-point specialist to really wreak havoc in their offense. Arkansas, they continue to defy odds, I guess, their reality. They continue to bring in freshmen, transfers. I did my first TikTok. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that. It's about, me. It's in the Reading Rainbow song. My face is all confused. Like, how does Arkansas have another kid? They're in another top 4. So Arkansas is losing J.D. Notae, Stanley Umude, Audis Tony, Chris Likes. That's 4. Connor Vanover, that's 5. Trey Wade, that's 6. Kalen Robinson, that's 7. Chance Moore, that's 8. So that's 8 guys out of the roster. They got lots of Scullies coming in. And Jalen Williams is in the draft right now. That's 9 if he stays out. They're really only bringing back Devo Davis, Jackson Robinson, Kamani Johnson. But they have one of the best freshman classes that they've had in a very long time, possibly ever. Nick Smith, number 3, Jordan Walsh, number 11, Anthony Black, number 15, Darian Ford, number 71, Barry Dunning, number 74, and Joe Peon, number 89. That's a really strong class. They're also bringing in Arizona State forward Jalen Graham, 10-point per game scorer. The Mitchell brothers from Rhode Island. We know they're high foulers, but we know that they can rebound, they can block shots, they can score a little bit. They're nice. And then Trevin Breezel, really solid athlete from Missouri. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then see, 13. So they might be at count now. There's talk to free up these spots for Ricky Council to come in of Kamani Johnson or Jackson Robinson dipping, because really there's not going to be any playing time for those guys. It's pretty obvious. And then I could even see Joe Pinion or Barry Dunning, the two lesser of that 5-man, actually it's a 6-man freshman class, possibly leading as well. If they redshirt, it's not going to be enough. That's not going to get their head count free. So there's a lot in play here for Arkansas. I don't know how they're doing it, what they're going to do, but it's definitely going to be interesting. Auburn, we know Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler are gone. Devin Cambridge is gone. Devin's going to play basketball with his brother Desmond at ASU. Katie Johnson, Wendell Green, Alan Flanagan, the other Jalen Williams, Zep Jasper, our dude, Dylan Cardwell, and Chris Moore, all expected back. A couple of other lesser-known guys that I'm not going to bother you guys with at the moment. They did flip LSU commit before the madness happened there, Johan Traore, to replace the Walker Kessler role, I'd say. Number 30 transfer. They bring in Chance Westry, number 36, and Trey Donaldson, who is a 4-star. Trey Donaldson's actually been playing really well in some of the secondary high school all-star games. I think he has a chance to play some big minutes right away if Wendell Green or Katie Johnson falter. I could see Trey Donaldson really kind of slide in there. And then, of course, Mr. Broom himself, Joni Broom, from Morehead State. I mean, I'm pretty much, we were obsessed with the kid anytime that we could. Just killed it. I mean, it was a shame that he didn't get to be in the tournament this time around. But Janai, it's how we pronounce it, Janai. Got to remember that. Janai Broom, he's an absolute stud. He's going to be a monster. So Auburn has been able to bring in Janai and Traore to replace the Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler roles. Don't sleep on Auburn as being a big-time tournament team. Florida Gators, Coach Golden coming over from San Fran. They're kind of losing quite a bit. Brandon McKissick, Tyree Appleby, Flanders Fleming. Colin Castleton has already said he'll be back. Miriam Jones, Kwesi Reeves, who's on a major breakout watch. CJ Felder, who's kind of up in the air. Niels Lane. They are going to have a couple 4-stars coming in. Denzel Aberdeen. They are bringing in a VMI transfer named Trey Bonham, 14-point per game scorer. Definitely not somebody to sleep on. Alex Fudge, who comes over from LSU. And Will Richards, from Belmont, stud for them. I think Richard's going to be a really strong player for this Florida Gators team. Broom was expected to go to Florida by many. It was his final 2, but he did choose Auburn ultimately. So the Gators are just okay. I think they're middling at this point. Coach Mike White goes over to Georgia. Georgia has really done some big things. So Aaron Cook's gone out of eligibility. Noah Bowman transfer, Christian Wright transfer, Jackson Eder transfer, Dylan Rignall transfer, Tyrone McMillan transfer. They're also getting rid of Tyrone Baker, Jonathan Ned, Josh Taylor, Cam McDowell, all these lesser used players. Returning 15-point per game scorer, Cario Oquendo, 13-point per game scorer, Braylon Bridges, Jalen Ingram, 11-point game scorer, coming back from injury, and Jabrim Abdur-Rahim, a 7-point per game scorer. Those 4 on their own, definitely a solid nucleus to bring back. They do have some major firepower coming from the portal. I will say Mike White's done a very phenomenal job bringing in the stud from Longwood, Justin Hill, 14-point per game scorer. He'll be factoring in right away. Terry Roberts, a 15-point per game scorer from Bradley. I would imagine he's going to step right into the starting lineup. My kind of passion project for the last 2 years, Matthew Alexander Moncrief, who the first year at Oklahoma State was used a lot, looked really good. Then Coach Boynton said he was going to use him at point guard at times. He could play 1 through 5, proceeded to hardly play him ever. He's at Georgia now. I'm really hoping that he'll be used correctly. It's Mike White. We'll have to see. And then Jason Holt, who was the Alabama transfer, not used that much, kind of a high pedigree kid. We'll see just how things work out for him. This Georgia team has really made some serious noise in the portal. I think it's important, though, to realize that they are coached by Mike White. And Mike White didn't necessarily use guys the proper way or in the right position or play at a tempo that he should at Florida. We know that that's kind of the running joke. So I want to temper expectations, even though, you know, they've done some really solid things in the portal, and really brought in some good talent. Frank Anselm from Georgetown has joined them as well. So they've brought in a plethora of guys, and they look really quite good. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I've kind of already talked on Kentucky. You know, they're going to be losing Ty, Kellen Grady, Davion Mintz. Those guys are out of eligibility. Ty's going pro. Dante Allen is off to Western Kentucky. Bryce Hopkins is off to Providence. Shaden Sharp is going to the NBA. Keon Brooks to the portal. Jacob Toppin is in the draft right now. I would expect him to come back. Damian Collins, Lance Ware, CJ Frederick, Xavier Wheeler, and Oscar T. back. Then they have Cason Wallace, Antonio Reeves, and Chris Livingston coming in. Wallace and Livingston, the 2 top 20 recruits. Antonio Reeves, the 21 point per game scorer from Illinois State. It's an okay roster. You know, we'll see how it works out. I think they're still in the mix for some guys, but, you know, now that they're going to be probably losing Keon Brooks, possibly even Jacob Toppin, they've got some work to do. The roster as it is right now has no depth, and that's something that Kentucky normally has a plethora of. LSU, they will be returning Justice Williams and Mwani Wilkinson. Those are the only 2. Otherwise, everybody's gone. Darius Days, Brandon Murray, Xavier Pinson, my guy Tari Eason, Efton Reed, who is off to Gonzaga, Adam Miller, who's already gone. He got injured, couldn't even play for them, and now he's gone. They are bringing in a really intriguing piece from Northwestern State, transfer Kendall Coleman, who's a 15.4 point per game scorer. Justice Hill, who comes over with his coach from Murray State, 13.4 points per game. Trey Hannibal from Murray State. So a couple of guys there that the new coaching staff brought with them. Still a chance KJ Williams ends up coming. He's in limbo there. He's in the portal from Murray State. Wouldn't shock me to see him ultimately go to LSU. Cam Hayes transferring over from NC State. Derek Fountain transferring over from Mississippi State. So LSU, they've done a nice, you know, what they could, you know, with everything going on, coaching staff with Will Wade getting fired, possible sanctions hanging over their head. They've been able to bring some really solid talent. And there's something to be said about how the coaching staff has handled that. So LSU, I think, will be better than people expect. It's just a matter of, you know, when that hammer drops on them. Mississippi State, they've lost a ton. Iverson Molinar, Garrison Brooks, DJ Jeffrey, Shaquille Moore again, our guy Anderson Garcia, Derek Fountain, who we just mentioned, Cam Carter, Javian Davis, and Rocket Watts. Expected to return or are confirmed to return Tolu Smith, Cam Matthews, and that's pretty much it. There's a couple other guys, but they're not DFS relevant or really worth noting. Tolu Smith, really the only guy you should care about. Deshaun Davis from Oregon State is transferring over. Was very heartbroken about that. His final 2 was my Washington Huskies and Mississippi State. Mississippi State obviously needed a guard. Washington has a couple of guys coming in already, and I think Davis ultimately thought that his path to the pros, playing time, usage was better off with Mississippi State, unfortunately for me and the Huskies, but he's there at Mississippi State, and he's going to play a big role. Will McNair from New Mexico State is transferring over, and they have a top 80 recruit in Kamani Hamilton. They've got some more work to do. There's still some commits / transfer portal stuff going on. They're in on quite a few guys actually they're on Final Four lists and things of that nature. So expect more moves from them. Missouri, who has new coaching staff as well. Cleveland State's head coach is over there. They've kind of cleared out some of the unnecessary stuff that was there. And I'm not trying to dog on any players, but aside from Trevin Brazil, losing Javon Pickett, Amari Davis, Jerron Coleman, DeJuan Gordon, Yaya Kaida, it's not really a big deal. Those guys were all kind of thrown together from different teams anyways, and it just didn't mesh together. As long as they got Kobe Brown coming back, which I believe he is, they should be okay. And Ronnie DeGray, who I think of all the transfers they brought in last year, I think he was honestly the best one that they had. They do have a top 70 recruit in Aiden Shaw, which is interesting. A couple of junior college guys, one of which is named Sean East. He was a UMass player, played in a couple different spots, a really big-time scorer. He crushed the JUCO level. He was actually pretty good at the A10 level too, but decided to transfer. I don't know if there was grades issue there, but playing is not or his play, I should say, is not going to be an issue. I think he has a chance to be a starter for them right away, or a pretty big contributor. Then coaching staff from Cleveland State coming over: Demoy Hodge, 15-point per game scorer; Trey Gamillion, an 11-point per game scorer. Those guys both come with their coach. Northern Iowa's Noah Carter, a 15-point per game scorer, comes over, and Nick Honor from Clemson, as well as DeAndre Golston from Milwaukee, 14.3 points per game. So Missouri has a lot of transfers coming in again. These transfers are much better than the ones they had last year. As a whole, they have what I'm looking at right now, about an 8, maybe 9-man rotation that we're going to be talking about a lot during the season, and we're going to be using guys from. I think that this Missouri team is going to be much improved, not only on paper, but in real life as well. Ole Miss, they lost a lot. Luis Rodriguez, Jarkel Joyner, as mentioned, Nazir Brooks. It's really just going to be Deshaun Ruffin, who I think will be a big-time scorer as long as he returns. Jamin Brakefield, Ty Fagan, and Matthew Morrell. Those are the main guys there coming in. They do have a couple of top 100s, Malik Ewan, TJ Caldwell, and Amory Apron. They've got some other stuff going on. They just brought in Theo Akuba from Louisiana, big, tall guy. Stats on paper aren't going to look great, but I think he's going to put up some solid numbers for Ole Miss, and they're going to use him in such a way that he should be successful. South Carolina, new coaching staff there, new head coach. They're bringing in some new guys. They've lost a lot, though. Jermaine Cuisinart, Eric Stevenson, James Reese, Devin Carter, Key Bryant, Wildens Levesque, A.J. Wilson, and Taquan Woodley are all gone. They will be bringing back Chico Carter and Javon Benson. None of those guys returning are really DFS relevant, or at least they weren't last year. Javon Benson is a name to keep an eye on. He kind of got hurt and was relevant. He was a big-time stud during high school and during their preseason stuff. I think he has a chance to be really, really good. They are bringing in the Citadel transfer, Hayden Brown, who averaged almost 20 points per game. Obviously, the Citadel to the SEC. We need to, kind of slow our roll there. Michi Johnson from Ohio State is coming to South Carolina as well. And they have some other moves in the pipeline coming through South Carolina. Their coaching staff's going to be really good. I know that much, but they'll take them some time to kind of figure things out. Tennessee, Kennedy Chandler is gone. John Filkerson is gone. Huntley Hatfield's gone. Justin Powell is leaving again. He's transferring. Victor Bailey is gone. And Quentin Dujabon is gone. Another guy that kind of was lesser used. The big thing for Tennessee is they're bringing back Josiah Jordan-James. Love him. Triple-double threat all the time. Sakai Ziegler, who is a major breakout threat. Oliver Numqua, who got injured, but is really good. Euros Plavsit, and that's pretty much it. They do have a 4-star coming in BJ Edwards, and they're bringing in a really solid 3-year starter in Tyreek Key from Indiana State, averaged 17.2 points per game. They're in on a couple of other players too. I think the Vols are going to run a really we're kind of in limbo with Santiago Vescova, but I'm pretty sure Vescova will come back. But I think the Vols are going to be nice for DFS because we're probably looking at maybe a 7-man rotation for Barnes. Their bench is kind of looking pretty shoddy at the moment. They'll probably bring in somebody to kind of strengthen it, but I do think ultimately there'll be a 7 to 8-man rotation. We'll be able to run Ziegler a lot with Chandler out the door. Expect Ziegler to play 30-plus minutes. He was already putting up, 9 points, 5 assists kind of thing in his low minutes, and so he has a potential to be a double-double guy. Texas A&M, they are bringing back Henry Coleman. That's good. Tyrese Radford, my guy, Manny Obaseki, Jalen Johnson, Andre Gordon, and Wade Taylor. Losing Quentin Jackson, he's out of eligibility. Aaron Cash, Ethan Henderson, and Marcus Williams. Also Hassan Diarra. So some pieces definitely out the door for them. They are bringing in Julius Marble from Michigan State. That was just announced a day or two ago. So, 20-minute role that he had at the Spartans. I think we're probably looking at that here for him on Texas A&M. I don't think he's suddenly going to just start playing 30 minutes or something like that. I think he's going to be kind of used in a similar way. So I don't know that his DFS prospects are really going to be looking any better in that regard, but it is interesting to see how he'll play in the SEC there. Moving through, Vanderbilt hasn't done a lot. They did bring in Ezra Mannion from UC Davis, who I like a lot. He played with a lot of high-end talent that went on to Kentucky, ASU, Connecticut. Like, he played with a lot of good players in high school, so it's nice to see him get a shot now to be in the SEC. Cincinnati. We're going to jump around to different conferences here. Cincinnati, Landers Nolly's coming in from Memphis, Rob Finney from Indiana, Kalu Ezekpe from Old Dominion. Cam Miller can recruit. He can recruit, and he can talk transfers into coming. They also have several 4-stars coming in. Dan Skilling, Sage Tolentino. Those are names to keep an eye on. Jeremiah Davenport is back. I believe David Julius has another year available. Same with John Newman. Same with Mika Adams-Woods. So a lot of continuity with their roster there. They're really just losing Mike Sanders, Mason Madsen, and Hayden Caval, and Abdul Ado, none of which are going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. Houston is going to be interesting. I think Houston is not going to get enough love in top 5 kind of preseason rankings. Kyler Edwards gone, Fabian White gone, Josh Carlton gone, my man Taze Moore gone. Those 4 going out, it's like, well, what do you mean they're probably going to be a bottom tier team? Not so much. Marcus Sasser, who is testing the draft waters right now, I expect him to return, come back from his injury. Tremont Mark come back from his injury. Those 2 alone makes the team a top 25. Jamal Shedd is back. Ramon Walker, I think, will be better. Juwan Roberts, we know he's capable of playing. And then they're bringing in a couple top 50 guys, one of which is a top 10 in Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker is going to be a guy. He's going to be a hashtag Waltz guy. Probably my favorite player in this particular class. I think he's the perfect Calvin Sampson player. He's going to block a lot of shots. He's going to get a ton of rebounds. He's going to be really, I don't want to say necessarily like a Fabian White type of play, but be able to step out and hit threes as a big. Kind of maybe liken him more towards, let's see, what's the name I'm trying to get here. Like a Nate Hinton type, perhaps. Nate Hinton, or even Corey Davis, like a mixture of those 2 players together. That's kind of where my head's at with where I think he's going to be, except he's obviously a bit of a bigger player, or a Justin Gorham. If you guys remember Justin Gorham, he shot about 38% from deep, had one of the top offensive ratings in the country, could rebound really well, like 30 rebounding rate, 32% combined. Like, that's going to be the type of player that he is. Also brought in, like I said, another top 60 guy in Terrence Arsenault, and they're involved in the portal. They haven't really hit on the portal just yet, but as it is right now, their roster's very good. Just going to be some pieces. The greatest thing about Calvin Sampson is he runs a very tight rotation. If they don't even get anyone else, they're just going to run Sasser, Mark, Shedd, Walker, probably Juwan Roberts. That 5 right there is enough to get it done. Kyron Powell, who redshirted last year, is going to be very good. And as I mentioned, Terrence Arsenault is going to be very good. So that group will be nice. I'm pretty excited for Houston. Memphis, Mr. Penny Hardaway, losing a ton. Jalen Duren's off to the pros. Josh Minot's probably gone. We know Nolly's gone. Bates is going to be signing with Louisville, I believe. I'm pretty sure, as I mentioned earlier. Earl Timberlake is off to Bryant. John Camden is off to, he's a redshirt anyway, so off to Virginia Tech. They had to kick Tyler Harris off the team, which is just sad. And I believe Alex Lomax, I think he's on the fence. So we're looking at Lester Quinones, Malcolm Dandridge, Chandler Lawson, and Jonathan Lawson, who had to redshirt. Their brothers, yeah. Bringing in Elijah McCadden, 12-point per game scorer from Georgia Southern, and Kendrick Davis from SMU. You guys know Kendrick Davis tortures us at times from SMU. So the Memphis roster is not super impressive to me. It's a lot smaller than you would expect it to be, and if DeAndre Williams comes back, which I suspect he will, it's going to be a nice, kind of 8-man rotation. Although Penny could definitely play more, find some guys, we know that's possible. But looking at it right now, if Lomax and Williams come back with Quinones, Kendrick Davis, the Lawsons, and McCadden, that's about 7-8 guys. They might be better for DFS much more than they've been the last 3 years. Let's see. Who else do we want to talk about? Other teams that aren't that aren't fucking around. San Diego State. Matt Bradley's back. Absolutely ecstatic about it. Lamont Butler should take the next step up. Kashad Johnson should take the next step up. They are bringing in some very strong transfers. Darion Trammell, who he played at Seattle U. I saw him, being in town. I'm a Husky fan. I've seen a couple of Seattle U games. They play right down the street from the Huskies. 17 point per game scorer. Giving a guy like that to Matt Bradley, who has to do a majority of the scoring throughout his college career, dating back to Cal and last year for SDSU. The fact that Aztecs were able to even make the tournament at all with just Bradley being their only real, double-digit scorer. Trey Pulliam, was kind of hit or miss. Josh Tomiak, hit or miss. It's a big deal. Jaden Leday is going to play center for them. He's been around the block, Ohio State, TCU, you name it. He's played there. He's going to play a big role there. I think Nathan Mensah is considering coming back if he's not already, or trying to get his COVID year extended. If he does, you're looking at Matt Bradley, Lamont Butler, Shad Johnson, Chad Baker, who's going to take the next step up, I believe, as well. Darion Trammell and Jaden Leday. Then they have a 4-star they've got as well, Elijah Saunders. This San Diego State team is really fun. I'm quite excited about them. I think they're going to do some serious damage, and they're going to have a chance to win the Mountain West. The Mountain West is going to be fun too. Wyoming, they're Graham Ike is back. Jeremiah Odin is back. They're really just losing Drake Jeffries, possibly Hunter Maldonado. Dang Dutt has transferred. He was expected to be a bigger factor. He wasn't. Wyoming, at this point, you can call Pac-12 North. Max Ogbenpaulo and Ethan Anderson from USC have transferred to Wyoming, and Jake Kyman from UCLA. So they're bringing in some Pac-12 guys. Statistically, you look at those guys and say, oh, big deal, but they are. Kyman's a really lethal shooter. His defense isn't up to Mick Cronin's level. Mick Cronin's very stickler for defense. You don't play it, you don't play. So Kyman will get his chance. I think he'll fill into that Drake Jeffries 3-point shooter role and play a lot better. I think we'll see Max Ogbenpaulo. I'm actually kind of hoping Maldonado just dips, because Max Ogbenpaulo is kind of he's a wing big, can play multiple positions. He can bring the ball up. He's a really exciting player. I think he has a chance to be kind of like a 14 point per game scorer on this Wyoming team, 5 rebounds, 3-4 assists, a couple of steals, like that type of player. So watch out for him. I think he'll be solid. Mountain West in general. And then, of course, Colorado State, they're in limbo waiting for David Roddy's decision. They've lost several guys to the transfer portal like Thistlewood, Deshaun Thomas, Chandler Jacobs. They're not really bringing anything in. They do have a Patrick Cartier, who in non-D1 averaged 22 points per game. I don't know how good he's going to do. Isaiah Stevens is back. I think Isaiah Stevens has a chance. Got him in Dynasty, so I'm hoping to be a 20 point per game scorer. John Tanye's back, James Moore's, but this roster of Colorado State's looks pretty putrid. They need to get in the portal. They need to start making some moves, because the other Mountain West teams are starting to pull ahead of them at this point. My UAB Blazers, I still plan. I've talked to some of you about it. I got sick a couple weeks ago, so I couldn't do it. But Andy Kennedy, the coach of UAB, has tentatively agreed to do a show and let me talk to him about what he thinks about NIL and the transfer portal and how he's used it. UAB's done a phenomenal job in the transfer portal the last 2 seasons. We know with all these guys, KJ Buffin they brought in, Tavin Lovin, years past, Tyreek LaCour, Michael Ertl, Josh LeBlanc, Quan Jackson. They've brought in some really good talent. Now they're losing a lot of those guys, like Jackson's out, Josh LeBlanc is gone to Nichols, Jamal Johnson's gone. Jordan Walker, Mr. Jelly, probably going to go pro. I hope he doesn't, but he's probably going pro. So they brought in, some nice talent. They're returning KJ Buffin, Tavin Lovin, Trey Jemison. Those 3 guys, key components. The Ladarius Brewer, Ty Brewer duo, who are both double-digit scorers from East Tennessee State, they're coming in. LSU's Eric Gaines is coming in. You guys remember, when Miller went out, Gaines kind of got to step up and really be a key contributor from day one there because of those injuries. I think he'll do really well for UAB. Mississippi State's Javian Davis is transferring over there, and also Tyler Bertram, who's kind of a physical, 9-5 type of player from Binghamton. So UAB is definitely a team to watch, and especially if I get a chance to talk to Andy Kennedy, they'll be near and dear to my heart. VCU bringing in a couple of Michigan transfers, Zeb Jackson and Brandon Johns. Be interesting to see how that goes. My man Vince Williams gone, Keyshawn Curry's gone, Marcus Deshonis is transferring out. They will be returning Ace Baldwin, Jaden Nunn. They'll be tough as usual. I think a team to really watch here will be St. Louis, a possible future. I'm going to talk a lot more in Twitter and when the conference winners come out, like odds for that type of stuff, right? It's not out yet. Just can bet on champions. But when they start dropping odds for conference winners, I'm going to start putting some stuff out there because like a UAB or St. Louis to win the A-10. St. Louis, they're losing Jordan Nesbitt, Martin Linson, and DeAndre Jones, but that's pretty much it. Yuri Collins is going to come back. Javante Perkins has decided to utilize his extra year. He got hurt. He was a 17.1 per game scorer the last couple of seasons. Having him back is going to be huge. Gibson Jemerson's back. Francis Okoro, who's been just absolutely a stud since he came up from Oregon. Fred Thatch, Terrence Hargrove. They've also signed Larry Hughes Jr. Yes, Larry Hughes Jr. You might be familiar with that name. Larry Hughes, his dad, former NBA player. Not ranked, surprisingly, but if you look at his high school stats, very good. So they're bringing him in. And also Javon Pickett, the transfer from Missouri. So, and they brought him in because they thought Yuri Collins was going to go pro, kind of a backup plan. So now he'll just be a bench piece, a solid bench piece. So St. Louis is a team that I think has a really good shot to win this conference, especially when you consider that St. Bonaventure has lost all of their production from last year. Pretty much every single player except for one guy who scored 4 points during the year is gone. So they're going to have a lot of replacement to do in there. It's going to be a struggle for them. So St. Louis has a chance to really kind of, take over that conference. Let's see. Dayton Flyers, my boys at Dayton. This is the team that I'm going to be betting a lot on too. Deron Holmes, Tamani Kumari, Malachi Smith, all back. Kobe Bray, who I think has a chance to be a breakout player. RJ Blakeney, all those guys are back. They've got a transfer coming in from Georgia by the name of Tyrone Baker. A Georgia transfer worked out from them before with Tamani Baker, so we'll see if they have a pipeline there. They're only really losing Elijah Weaver, who wasn't a big factor on offense. So they're bringing everybody back. They're going to be another year older. What's funny is, everybody's gassing up Creighton, and all these freshmen and sophomores are going to be so hyped. They're going to be so fantastic. What are you talking about? Like Dayton's freshman class performed better than Creighton's freshman class. Like Deron Holmes, 13 points per game. Just stud. Kobe Bray off the bench was averaging over 8. Malachi Smith is a guy who can put up, 12 and 12, 5 and 5 on any given day. That was as a freshman. As a sophomore, we could be looking at, 15 and 8. And then the DePaul transfer from last year, Kobe Elvis is back too. So arguably, I think Dayton is, and they're not going to be in any top 25 or hyped at all. So don't sleep on the Dayton Flyers because they're going to be really, really quite good. All right, let me go into, I want to talk about the Big 12 and just kind of chat about that because the Big 12's had obviously a lot of movement and there's going to be an infusion / exodus of teams from the Big 12, and Houston is going to be coming in and Texas is going to be leaving. So there's all that stuff going on. So, and that could be possibly happening as soon as not this season, but the season after. It's a big exit fee. But the Baylor Bears, James Akinjo is gone. He can no longer torment me. Kendall Brown's going pro. Jeremy Sochan's going pro. Dane Danger has transferred. I know people don't like Sochan because of the way he played. I was really hoping he'd come back because for DFS purposes, he was a killer. And Matthew Mayer, as I mentioned, is in the portal. They will be returning. Flagler is I believe is testing the NBA, and so is LJ Cryer. I do suspect that Cryer will be back. Flagler, I would probably say, will be back. Jonathan Chamwa, who was injured last year, he's back. Flo Thamba's back. And then Dale Bonner, we know he's back. And Zach Loveday, who I think will be better. He was kind of a higher pedigreed kid. Didn't play a lot. They're bringing in the number 6 recruit, Keontae George, McDonald's All-American, big-time stud. And then transfer-wise, Jalen Bridges from West Virginia and Caleb Lohner from BYU. No, and D'Antoine Grimes of JUCO. Now, none of those 3 names are really going to probably register with you. You're not going to suspect that they're going to add anything, but Baylor's coaching staff with Drew and his assistants who have gone on to coach it, his head coaches, are going to be able to utilize these guys in a much better way than their previous coaches could. And not to talk bad about Huggy Bear, fantastic coach, but he was fantastic when he had Kenyon Martin, and he was fantastic, in the mid 2010s. And I'm just not seeing it from him right now. And we're seeing guys leave like Oscar Tshiebwe and then go smash. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Bridges is going to go have an Oscar Tshiebwe like season, but we saw several times where Jalen Bridges, when he was allowed to make mistakes, when he was allowed to play without looking over his shoulder, have some really good games. Now, he was constantly having to look over his shoulder because if he made a mistake, he was getting yanked. So I think, with him coming in and looking at this Baylor roster, and they're in need of a solid wing like him, and especially if Mayer's going to bounce, I think Jalen Bridges has a chance to start and be really, really good. And you already know I'm a big Caleb Lohner fan. Who was freshman season, he was better. I don't think he was used properly as much last year. Lohner's a really solid rebounder, a guy who easily could average 8 real points, which is okay, but 10 real rebounds. Like, he's going to be such a phenomenal rebounder for this Baylor team in this Baylor system. He's going to just be a smash. Like, you look at his rebounding numbers, 31% combined rebounding rate a season ago. The season before that, it was a 33% combined rating. He did shoot better from long range. His 2-point field goals were better. His free throws were better. So he took a step back on offense, but his rebounding, his block shots, his steals, all that stuff was about the same or went up. So I'm kind of excited about this fit for him with the Baylor Bears. And I think there's going to be a chance for Baylor to, make another run with this roster as is. Iowa State, as I mentioned, they were, complaining about the portal a little bit, but, over the years, they've really done well with the portal. Isaiah Brockington, coming in and averaging 17 points per game. They made a tournament run because of a transfer. The Fred Hoiberg years, they've used the portal to perfection. But they are losing a lot. George Condit, Isaiah Brockington, obviously Tyrese Hunter, Trey Jackson, Jaden Walker, Tristan Inaruna. These are all pretty key pieces and guys who played in the rotation a lot. Bringing in multiple 4-stars, Eli King and Tamin Lipsey. So they're doing their thing on the recruiting market. Robert Jones, Caleb Grill, Alges Kunk, and Gabe Kalshore are all back. The ageless one, Gabe Kalshore. And then bringing in a couple of pretty solid transfers. Trey King at Eastern Kentucky, a 15-point-per-game scorer. Jeremiah Williams from Temple, who was one of Temple's main players. He averaged about 9.5 points per game, but he was a big-time dime dropper. He got steals, contributed in multiple categories. And then Hassan Ward from VCU, who, is a big-time kind of a George Condit clone, except he does George Condit better than George Condit. So Hassan Ward's just a big body that's going to be able to do some damage. So Iowa State's still working through some things, and they're still bringing in bodies and still going to be work in the portal. I would expect them. They're on some final lists. I mean, shoot, they're in on Manny Bates. There's a good chance that they end up with Manny Bates, this time tomorrow. If he doesn't go to Butler, like I think he will, Iowa State would be a pretty good landing spot for a player like Manny Bates, and that would instantly make them, a contender with that front court of Hassan Ward and Manny Bates. There's going to be really hard pressed to score on a front court like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think he's going to Butler. Man, there's just so much. There's just so much in the portal. I love talking about this stuff, though, honestly. All right, Kansas Jayhawks, losing Agbaji, probably McCormick. Martin's out of eligibility. Jalen Coleman Lands is finally out of eligibility. It took 8 years, but he's finally out of college. And Mitch Lightfoot, gone. Christian Brown is in the draft right now. Kind of 50-50. I don't really have a strong sense. I think he's going to stay in the draft, but other people I've talked to are convinced he's going to return. So we'll see. As far as who's returning, Jalen Wilson, absolutely, hell yeah. DeJuan Harris, Joseph Yesufu, who I really hope he can look like the Midwest, the mountain, what am I saying? The Missouri Valley Conference version of himself a couple years ago on Drake when he was in the tournament, kicking ass. Zach Clements, who I think will take the next step forward. KJ Adams, who I think will take a next step forward. And Bobby Pettiford, who I'm really, really high on. I think Bobby Pettiford steps into the starting lineup. Bringing in a couple of high-level recruits, Grady Dick, who's number 14 on ESPN, Ernest Uday, who's number 2030, MJ Rice, number 30, and Zubi Ejiofor at number 75. So, and they're on a couple, they're thought, to be in on Tyrese Hunter as well. I think Louisville's pulled ahead of them for Tyrese Hunter at this point. But as is right now, they're a young group with what they have, but I think they're talented enough to make a second weekend run for sure. And if Christian Brown comes back, I would put them even further, like an Elite Eight, possibly Final Four team, because they have that experience. They just won a title. Jalen Wilson is going to be an absolute monster. And please, Bill Self, for the love of God, please let Joseph Yesufu play. Let him cook. Other teams in the conference, Oklahoma's lost a lot. Jordan Goldwire, Elijah Harkless, Moshe Gibson, Ethan Chargot, all gone. Joe Bamisile, the 16-point per game scorer from George Washington, does join them. They have a couple of top 60 recruits. Sam Godwin from Wofford is transferring over. Tanner Groves is back. Jalen Hill is back. Jacob Groves is back. It's a little bit different of a roster, not so deep right now, but watch out for Joey B. He's going to be a big-time DFS play. Oklahoma State, I'm not a believer in Coach Mike Boynton anymore. I'm almost like wondering how much more they're going to take from him, because he has sold them a we're going to kick ass, persona, and he just hasn't really delivered. They've lost a bunch of pieces, kind of secondary pieces at this point. Bryce Williams, Isaac Likeel, which is surprising. Keelan Boone, who's off to Pacific. Donovan Williams, who's off to Pacific. They're losing they're funneling their talent to the Pacific University. And then, of course, Matthew Alexander Moncrief. Not really bringing in a ton. Avery Anderson, Caleb Boone, Rondell Walker, Mo Cisse back. Woody Newton back. Bryce Thompson back. They've got a lot of work cut out for them. They did bring in transfer recently, though, I think as early as yesterday. John Michael Wright from High Point. Big time, high usage, high scorer. So he'll probably step into a starting role, but coming over from High Point, it's not a guarantee that he's going to step into a high major role and produce at the same level. So it's important to make that distinction. Texas losing Andrew Jones, Courtney Ramey, Trey Mitchell, Devin Askew, and Jace Febreze. Timmy Allen has said he'll be back. Marcus Carr surprisingly will be back. Christian Bishop, Dylan Disu, and Brock Cunningham. Dylan Mitchell is a McDonald's All-American, number 4 in the class. Arterio Morris, number 17, and Rowan Brumbaugh, number 90. Brumbaugh was going to go to Northwestern, skirted on them, decided to come to Texas. Those 3 kids are going to play right away. And the New Mexico State transfer, Sir Jabari Rice, has come over. So that's what Texas is working with at the current moment. Texas Tech, they unfortunately for me got Fardaw. Amick is somebody that the Huskies were in on, that they were able to flip him last minute and bring him in. They're bringing back Kevin O'Banner, and Clarence Nadolny and Daniel Batcho. Otherwise, they're going to look like a completely different team. They're also bringing in Devian Harmon from Oregon, Jalen Tyson from Texas, who didn't do a lot at Texas, really high pedigree. I think you'll see him play really well. He'll be a big-time star. And Damarian Williams, a 15-point per game scorer from Gardner-Webb. Bryson Williams gone. Terrence Shannon is off to Illinois. Davian Warren's gone, out of eligibility. Adonis Arms gone. I believe he's out of eligibility. Marcus Santos Silva is off to play tight end in the NFL. And Kevin McCullough is going to possibly play for Gonzaga. He's in the transfer portal / NBA testing the waters. There's a really good chance from what I've read that if he doesn't stay in the draft, he will be a Gonzaga Bulldog. So it'll be interesting to see how that plans out. Joe Toussaint from Iowa, Eric Stevenson from South Carolina are both off to West Virginia. Meh. Be interesting to see about Arizona, what they're going to do, because Benny Mathurin and Christian Koloko are definitely gone. Kim Aiken is definitely gone, and Justin Kier is definitely gone. Dallin Terry is going to make the next step and be a big-time star. Kerr Kriisa, Omar Balu, Adama Ball, who I think is going to be good. Shane Noel is actually in the portal now as well, and they have 4-star Dylan Anderson. So I think we're probably looking at Arizona taking a step back, which is going to allow some other teams in the Pac-12 to kind of step in there. Arizona State, we're in the Pac-12 now, lost Jay Heath, lost Marion Jackson, Kamani Lawrence, Jalen Graham, a couple of other irrelevant players, DJ Horn, Marcus Bagley, who should return, Luther Muhammad, and Alonzo Gaffney. A couple of 4-stars, but the big one here is they're bringing in Desmond and Devin Cambridge, one from Nevada, high scorer, and Devin from Auburn, and Warren Washington from Nevada. So that's replacing a lot of that missed production. Desmond Cambridge is an absolute stud. I would expect a high usage role, possibly, depending on Marcus Bagley's health and if he does come back. Cambridge could be a 20-point-per-game scorer if Bagley's back to full health, probably more like 15. Andre Kelly of Cal just went to UCSB Gauchos, nothing else. They're going to be a very terrible team. Colorado is going to take a major step back. Keyshawn Bartholomew has transferred to Oregon. Evan Beatty's gone out of eligibility. Elijah Parquet has transferred. Jabari Walker has announced he's going to stay in the NBA draft and play professionally. Doesn't care if he's going to be drafted or not. He's going to play pro somewhere. He could have got a crap ton of NIL, but he just wants to go pro. They're bringing in Ethan Wright, a 15-point-per-game scorer from Princeton, and a couple of 4-stars. Tristan Da Silva, KJ Simpson, Nick Clifford, Julian Hammond, and Luke M. O'Brien are your main guys returning. They're going to be a bad team as is, depending on what else they bring back. So that's another Pac-12 team stepping back. Oregon Ducks, Davian Harmon's gone. Eric Williams is out. Frank Kepnong is off to my Huskies. Yeah. Jacob Young is out of eligibility. So Quincy Guerrier and Folly Dante and Nate Biddle back. Dior Johnson, another guy who we may have on the show. One of my other favorite guys in this class, number 35. Khalil Ware, number 8. As I mentioned, Bartholomew from Colorado, and a couple of really solid JUCOs in the top 10, Brennan Grigsby and Tyrone Williams. So Oregon's okay. They still have moves to make. We know they'll have somebody. Oregon State's going to be awful. They are losing basically all of their production from last year outside of Glenn Taylor Jr., who's going to be a big-time star, and Ahmad Rand. They have several 4-stars coming in, but it's going to be rough going. This Oregon State team is going to be very, very bad. Stanford is going to be very, very bad. UCLA, despite losing Peyton Watson to the pros, Jake Hyman to Wyoming, Cody Riley and Miles Johnson to no more eligibility, and Johnny Juzang to the NBA, I actually feel like they're going to be better than last year. So this is the time to jump back onto UCLA in a Pac-12 conference where they could easily take the top spot and win it. Jaime Hawkwez is back. He knows he's going to make more in NIL. Tiger Campbell is back. Jalen Clark, who's going to be a star. And Will McClendon, who had the red shirt, he was in the class with Peyton Watson, top 100 guy. Very good player. Now that he's going to be off red shirt and playing, I think we'll see him play really, really well. Number 5 in the class, Amari Belli, and number 16, Adema Bona. Also number 44, Dylan Andrews. Really strong team, a mix of veterans, all tough kids. Amari Bailey is going to be an absolute stud, one and done. We're going to be using him all the time. But the main player to look at here is Jalen Clark, because I think he'll move in the starting lineup. And we know what happens when Jalen Clark starts. He goes absolutely nuts. USC looking like they're going to take a step back, although they have a pretty solid class. Vincent Ichukwu, number 32, is going to probably replace Isaiah Mobley if he stays in the draft. Trey White will replace Drew Peterson if he stays in the draft. Kajani Wright will be just a guy that comes in and starts right away next to Boogie Ellis. That's number 28, 32, and 38, as well as a 4-star Oziah Sellers. Otherwise, this USC team is pretty meh on paper. This Utah team is pretty meh on paper. David Jenkins is gone again. Dusan Mahorich is off to NC State. Buzgach gone, and Lahation has decided to transfer as well. They are bringing in Mike Sanders from Cincinnati and top 100 kid in Keba Kaida. Otherwise, it's Marco Anthony, Brandon Carlson, Rolly Wooster, and Lazar Stefanovic. Getting to my Huskies, Terrell Brown out of eligibility. Emmett Matthews has jumped ship back to West Virginia. Jamal Bay is still deciding he's going to come back at this point. We need him. Dejon Davis is out of eligibility. Dom Penn didn't get any playing time, so he bounced. Nate Robinson is going pro. Even if he's not going to get drafted, he's going to play overseas, he has said. Back is my guy, PJ Fuller, Cole Badgema, Langston Wilson, Jackson Grant, who should be playing a much bigger role, former McDonald's All-American. Bringing in a 4-star Corin Johnson, who should start at guard right away for us, 4-star Tyler Linhart, and then Noah Williams transferring from Washington State, and Frank Kupnong from Oregon. We also just signed a 7-foot kid, backup center for Fresno State, Braxton Mia. Couldn't get around Orlando Robinson. That's a tough guy to play behind. So I think Braxton will be a pretty key piece for us. So in a very down Pac-12 where most teams are just bleeding players, I think my Huskies have a chance to do pretty well. Washington State, they've lost Noah Williams, Michael Flowers, Effie Abagidi. Mo Gay has decided to enter the portal. Tyrell Roberts has decided to enter the portal. Right now, they're looking at Deshaun Jackson, TJ Bamba, and Andre Jackson-Mosky. They did just get a really big man, like a wingspan of 7'6", 7'1" kid that is going to play for them. To replace them in their bigs. But again, another team that's going to be generally just down. So a lot to go on here. As far as way too early top 25 rankings kind of thing, I did want to kind of share my thoughts on that. Kind of where my head is at, I guess. The consensus right now is obviously Kansas, which even Kansas, like their roster right now, it's studly, but I don't know, just because they're the title holder, should they be number one? Arkansas, these are the teams that people are on. So I think for me, as is right now, I think I would put Arkansas on number one just because they are so loaded and they're still trying to add more with Ricky Council. I think I would probably put North Carolina as 2, assuming that they do fill that Kerwin Walton spot. At number 3, I'm going to be higher than others on them. Probably I'm going Baylor. At number 4, Houston. And then my 5th would be Kansas. I think I would put them in 5. And then Creighton's right there at 6. I don't know. I want to see, I'm going to get killed by Creighton fans. I want to see everybody coming back from injury, how Baylor does. There is worry, I guess, about Baylor, Sherman, because that first half he dominated against Providence, right? And then the second half they kind of, they jumped on him and shut him down there a little bit. And his history against P5 or upper tier competition, it's not super great. He's had some relatively just okay games, 14-4 against my Huskies earlier this year, against Washington State 11-8. Just pretty decent. Against Bama, 10. Although he did have 18 rebounds, but we know Alabama couldn't stop anyone down there. And then dating back to last year, Utah State, what was it, 17. St. Mary's, 6 points. So he's had some mediocre games against upper tier competition. I'm not trying to be a Creighton hater by any means, but I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting to see how that rolls out there. That would be my top 5. As far as the rest of guys, I think UCLA belongs in the top 10. I think Duke, they belong in the top 10. Gonzaga, didn't even speak on Gonzaga. So they got Efton Reed from LSU. We know they're bringing them in. Like, you can't count Gonzaga out. Drew Timme and Julian Strother are testing the draft waters right now, but Antoine Watson is back. Nolan Hickman and Hunter Salas are both going to be back. Those are top 50 guys from last year that they didn't get a lot of playing time because of the stars on the team, but this is their next in line. Caden Perry is a guy who's going to take a step forward. Ben Gregg, a lot of people like. Dom Harris has a lot of Julian Strother in him. He had to take a medical red shirt last year. He will be very, very good. If Strother doesn't return, I feel comfortable with Dom Harris kind of jumping back into the mix. Like I said, Efton Reed is there, and I really do think that Kevin McCullough is going to choose Gonzaga. Kansas is the other team in his final two. Can you imagine Kevin McCullough going to Kansas after playing for Texas Tech? Man, those fans will just hate on him. But I think I'd see him go to Gonzaga. So, assuming Strother comes back, I'm 50-50 on Timmy, but, Nolan, Antoine Watson, Hickman, Salas, Perry, Harris, McCullough, and Reed, like, that's solid. It's not the best Gonzaga team in the world, but it's top 10 worthy. There's no doubt about that. Other teams that I'm seeing get a lot of hype: TCU, Tennessee to a degree, Michigan. They got Princeton transfer Jalen Llewellyn, who ended up decommitting from Clemson after he went there. Jett Howard has been said, by a lot of scouts that he might be the best player in the class. Obviously he's Juwan's son. And he's going to be really good. They're waiting for Caleb Houston and Mo Diabate to decide if they're going to return. I would say Caleb Houston will definitely be back. Mo Diabate got invited to the next level of NBA camps. It's a good chance he doesn't return. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I kind of okay on them. Iowa's lost a lot. Obviously, Keegan Murray out. Chris Murray, definitely a guy who could take that next step. Auburn, I'm really high on. Villanova is going to have to do some work. I mean, obviously losing Jay Wright, but they're going to be having a lot of holes. The player to watch there is Cam Whitmore, rising 5-star. He's going to be a big time player for them. Illinois has obviously had a bunch of transfers, so there's a ton. Before I get out, I do want to talk about other Big East teams, though, because we talked about Creighton. I want to talk about St. John's, who is my adopted, non-Washington team. So they have made some serious moves in the portal. Obviously, Julian Champagny is off to the pros. Aaron Wheeler has decided he doesn't want to play college anymore. Steph Smith is out of eligibility. Tarek Coburn out of eligibility. Returning is our guy, Posh. Love it. Montez Mathis, Joel Soriano should be much better. Dylan Adewusu, Omar Stanley, and Raphael Pinson should be healthy. Top 80 recruit in AJ Storr, one of the better recruits they've had in quite some time. He's going to be strong. 3-star Colby King, he's looking pretty good. But Andre Carabello transferring from Illinois, making that backcourt with Posh Alexander. The thought is, well, neither one of these guys can shoot. How's that going to work? They're going to play zone, pack it in. Posh is starting to shoot better. Last season, he was definitely looking for a shot more. With Curbelo, he's going to be able to kind of play off ball. Curbelo can initiate the offense. I think Posh, he's going to be a better shooter this year. So I'm definitely thinking that the St. John's team is going to be good. Oh, yeah, and they got David Jones from DePaul. Like, this roster is so much better already from last year, even with them losing Aaron Wheeler and Julian Champagny. Like AJ Storr, Andre Curbelo, Posh Alexander, Joel Soriano, who should probably be the starting 5, and then David Jones at the 3, or maybe even the 4. Like, that's a strong lineup. The bench might still be a little hit or miss. There's some that think Dylan Adewusu will start over AJ Storr, and he might at first, but Mathis, Pinson, and Stanley and Noai off the bench. I still think they need one more shooter, somebody like a Michael Jones from Davidson. But we'll see. The St. John's team, if they don't make the tournament with this roster, they got to go. That's terrible. I think the only other team I want to talk about is UMass. Frank Martin goes from South Carolina, goes to UMass. rebuild a team that hasn't been relevant in quite some time, pulls a strong transfer in Matt Cross from Louisville, Gianni Thompson from Boston College, who is on my breakout list. I really liked him last year, but he didn't get a chance to play that much. And then Rasul Diggins, who top 100 guy from UConn, didn't get a chance to play because there's a gluttony of guards in front of him. Now he heads over to UMass to play some substantial minutes. There's a lot of teams lower major that are loading up on players like a UMass that they're just going to be so rock solid. And I think that we're going to see a little more parity than maybe people think, to the point that there's still going to be upsets. Some of these super teams or whatever, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for these guys to flinch. A team like UMass, coached by Frank Martin, I think he's brought in Taquan Woodley with him from South Carolina. There's a lot of people, myself included, that think he'll bring in Keyshawn Bryant with him from South Carolina. Like, he could have one of the best starting lineups in that conference. And that conference itself is going to be really quite strong. The A-10, really St. Bonaventure takes a step back, but UMass, Dayton, VCU, and they're all teams that are taking a strong step forward. So I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about this upcoming season. I'm putting together a bunch of transfer portal sheets and things like that. Also St. Louis from A-10. So I have a lot of previews, transfer stuff, like so much content coming out. My job has really turned up on me too, and I'm doing a lot of work there, so I haven't been on the computer as much. I've been kind of taking some downtime, but I'm really quite excited about this season. Just to kind of throw out some other pertinent transfers that have happened within the last couple of days. Sully Boom to Xavier. That's an interesting one. De facto high usage scorer, shoot the ball, a replacement at guard, something that they really needed. A Cook has gone to Georgetown from UConn. Brandon Murray, we know from LSU to Georgetown. Georgetown has missed out on a lot the last couple of days. They have also, kind of rebuilt their team a bit, but they have really kind of struggled to win out. They made a bunch of top 3, top 4 lists for transfers, and they're just not sealing the deal on a lot of these guys. Connor Vanover is going to Oral Roberts from Arkansas, where he can get some actual minutes. Who else is pertinent? Anderson Garcia, my man from Mississippi State, he's also going to Texas A&M. He was somebody I didn't mention earlier. Day Grant to Duquesne's from Miami, Ohio. He's a big-time scorer. There's going to be a lot of good parity, I think, and I'm really excited. And all these new rosters, there's just so much to look at. Yeah, I mean, Eastern Michigan, the last couple of days, they've landed some solid recruits. So yeah, lots of stuff going on. But I just wanted to kind of chat about NIL, chat about the transfer portal, go over some teams. Like I said, I'll go more in depth about the different conferences, kind of how it's going to pertain to DFS. For those of you who are following me for other niche sports, expect a WNBA preview tomorrow, a WNBA slate breakdown of Friday, and USFL of this week as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. I wanted to get on here and chat it up, yuck it up a little bit, and appreciate those of you who continue to support me. Expect a WNBA version of the Super Show probably this weekend. Thanks, guys.